does.
It's like you can be the smartest person in the room, but if you are paint dry and boring,
It doesn't matter.
no. Give me the person who's fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amen.
Presentations.
Amen.
That's what we like our podcast. All right, we ready?
I think so.
All right.
I'm good there. They ain't beeped at me yet, so I'm good there. I got the memory card working there.
Am I okay with distance here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah,
All right.
we're good. Doesn't matter. I'll make it work.
Okay.
All right.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Quality Matters. I'm your hostess, Darcy Chambers.
I'm Kyle Chambers.
We're at the Doug Mid-Continent Conference, and we're sitting here with Richard Spears of Spears and Associates. Thank you for joining us.
We spent a lot of time trying to figure out what our company name needed to be.
Oh.
So that's where we
It's
came up with
unique.
that name.
So Richard is one of the speakers here that we heard, and we got a hold of him and said,
Yes.
hey, will you come be on our podcast? So first, just tell us a little bit about what your company does.
So ours is a pretty simple story. We're a 54-year-old, 55-year-old company that's always been an oil field market research firm.
Okay.
1965, Dad
Really?
started the company in our garage out behind the house on East 13th Street.
Oh, that's cool.
And
that's cool.
So we're still in Tulsa, but now we have this global footprint.
Right.
And if you look at our client base, it's Saudi Aramco and Chevron and Schlumberger and Halliburton and all the investors in New York and in London but every time they come to us, it's to look at the size and the trends in oil field equipment and services, product lines, technologies, management teams. So we do a bunch of advisory work related to deals. Companies up for sale.
Gotcha.
We'll take a look at it.
Makes sense.
So that's my morning job. And in the afternoon, because we work on so many deals, sometimes my brother and I take off our consultant hat and we put on our co-investor hat, and we approach the private equity firm who's doing this, making this acquisition.
awesome.
We say, would you consider not paying us? By the way, that's not the policy we have for everybody. But we say, would you consider letting us take off our advisor hat and be your co-investor hat? And also, would you consider putting one of us on your board of directors? Because sometimes, whatever the company is that's being looked at, the product service line that they've got, and the management team that's running that business, and the private equity firm that is about to make this investment, all those three planets line up. Doesn't happen very often, but
Right.
sometimes it does. And it fits an area that my brother and I are interested in.
Oh,
So we have
fascinating.
a bunch of those kind of companies.
So
Oh, very
in
cool.
exchange for your fee, you become an investor.
Well, we do that,
Sort
but
of.
we'll put in our family money. We'll actually not bill them, and we'll actually be the contributor of capital alongside our private equity partners. So
Okay.
we've done 17 or 18 or 19 of those.
Oh, that's good.
And
Wow.
it's my afternoon job. But here's
Sounds like fun.
here's why it's germane to this. In doing so, we have to live by our own advice. Like the morning job, the market research business.
Right.
Now I've got to go to the board meeting in the afternoon and review my market research work. And it's made us really much more humble,
I bet.
because you realize, what is a forecast?
Yeah.
There's so many things that can mess that up. And so that's where we come from.
Interesting.
interesting.
That is. You're absolutely held accountable to yourself, not just to your own standard, but your own finances.
Well, yeah, our clients are holding us accountable.
Yeah.
The companies we invest in, well, boy, that one's easy to watch. But it's also, I mean, anybody that's listening to this who's ever prepared a forecast knows that you work on the best information available, and then you really make a guess. You make an educated guess about what you think's going to happen.
Right.
And it never works out that way. But you
gotta have a target.
You got to have a target. Otherwise, you're going to definitely miss the target.
Right.
You just have to have the ability to pivot pretty quickly
Sure.
when things are going off that path. So that's what we've been doing for decades and decades.
Well,
Very
that's
cool.
interesting. I
Very
love
cool.
the story that it started in the garage because, so many good companies started in the garage. You always see the memes going
Yes.
around.
Apple Computer, HP, Spears
Yep.
and Associates, kind of the same.
Same
All
thing.
the
Same
same
thing.
level. That's what we're looking at. Okay, so when
Fun,
you were
fun,
speaking,
fun.
you asked a question. I don't know if it was rhetorical or you meant to get back to it, but ran out of time. And you asked if Elizabeth Warren would be able to stop fracking in the United States? And before we get that question answered, you talked about fracking, which I actually had to look up. Well, so you talked about fracking, and that's not really what they're referring to when they say they're going to stop it.
Yes, so let's define the term then.
Let's do that.
The oil industry for, 60 years has done this thing called hydraulic fracturing. And the short end we've always used for that, for a couple of generations, is the term frack, and we spell it F-R-A-C. And it very specifically is where you pump fluid and sand and some chemistry down into the well. It cracks the rock open. The fluid drags the sand down into the crack in the rock that you've just done. And when you're done pumping and cracking the rock open, you turn all the pumps off. It flows back out. You leave the sand in place. And that props this fracture you've created now allows the flow of oil, gas, and water back to the well site.
Okay.
So the industry thinks of frack as that, because that's what it is. But it's taken me a long time to realize that when the opponents of the oil industry talk about frack, they put the K on the end. So that's what you'll see commonly spelled F-R-A-C-K. I'll leave it to your own imagination what that looks like written down, because that's the intent. But what the opponents of the oil industry refer to there, it's not an accident. And what the opponents of the industry are talking about is the entire U.S. oil industry.
Right.
The drilling of the well, the hydraulic fracturing of the well, the producing of the well. And so the question would be, like Elizabeth Warren, if she becomes the President of the United States, she has said, I'll do two things on the first day. I'll stop all leasing of federal lands for future oil field development. And she says, and I will also stop frack. And what she means isn't hydraulic fracturing where I crack the rock open. She's talking about the entire oil and gas
The whole
industry.
thing.
It's a whole thing. And it's not just the new wells that are being drilled every year. It's the million wells that we've already drilled
That are
and are
existing.
producing for the
Because
last
it's a
50, 60
continual process. You don't just do this once.
Yeah, so here's what happens. If she's the president, the first day she stops it, there'll be litigation. But what will happen is that those people who fund the next new well being drilled are going to say, the risk is now too great. What if this vote goes against me? I'm stopping now. So here's what would happen. The oil fields in the U.S. decline at a stunning pace. Let's say we produce 12 million barrels a day today. If you stop it in January of 2021, that by late spring 2021, the world will be short of oil by 2 or 3 million barrels of oil every day.
Right.
What does the
Wow.
price of oil go do at that point?
Oh,
Goes to the
it's just
moon.
gonna skyrocket.
You're short.
And what I
Gas
think a lot-
tanks run out, etc.
Folks don't realize the U.S. is now an exporter of oil. For a
baby.
long time, we've been a massive importer.
That's something I wanted to address, because you said if the U.S. stops, then the world's going to be short. And I don't think people realize that we produce so much oil now.
And not just oil, but the natural gas and like all of the plastics around us. That's where it comes from.
So even though we get big focus on the Middle East, that's where all the oil is. Oil output has not been growing anywhere on the planet except one place, United States of America, and that's for the last 3 or 4 years. So and demand for this product we make, oil and gas, it rises every year. So the only place it's been coming from to answer the world's demand for this thing is Oklahoma, West Texas, New Mexico. It's the states that produce oil, which are just a handful of them.
Interesting.
So you stop it in the U.S., all of the barrels of the world they touch each other. The term is called, it's a fungible commodity, which means my barrel here looks just like the barrel coming out of the Saudi Arabian's well, and it can be burned and used anywhere. So that's what that means. That's why it's such a big deal. I believe we have a republic. You should vote. You can put in anybody you want to. I'm a huge supporter of that. You just have to know what the consequence is by making that choice.
Right.
And that choice is going to be you're guaranteeing that 3 months later, when you drive to put in the 8 gallons of gas in your Prius, those 8 gallons are going to cost you twice as much as they did during
least.
the prior winter.
Yeah.
And if you got your F-150, because everybody still loves a good F-150,
Oh
Right.
yeah.
that thing's going to cost, instead of $80 to fill, $180
Yeah.
to fill. That's going to be the
crazy.
choice.
Well,
and
and
she
it's
can
just-
sign that the first day. There's no stopping. I mean, it'll have to be fought afterwards.
Yeah.
You bet.
But there's
But
nothing
just
to stop her.
the threat, would be enough to shut down, and they could I say easily, it'd be a huge financial investment, but move elsewhere.
What person with money would invest in a new well, even if they love the oil industry? What would you put a nickel in the industry if you thought it was going to be outlawed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A week later, a year later, 4 years later,
Yeah.
you go, no,
it's silly.
I'm gonna put my money in growing hemp. That's the growth market, baby. So we're gonna have a bunch of hemp out there, but you can't leave the house because there's no gasoline for your F-250.
That's all right.
funny.
Probably shouldn't be driving anyway.
Yeah.
Well, maybe so.
Well, we had something kind of similar happen when there was the moratorium on offshore drilling, that so many of the rigs that got shut down were, when the drilling reopened, were bought out by foreign investors.
Somebody loves the industry. There's people who love the industry. There is a difference going on right now, and the face of that difference is this little Swedish girl named Greta Thunberg.
Mm-hmm.
And even though Greta is really just the icon of the moment of the industry, it's
Right.
not so much her,
Right.
but the world is galvanized around her. And it's absolutely in Europe, it's absolutely in Asia, now it's in the United States, where the investors of the world have said, she might just be right. We need to get rid of all fossil fuels in the next 10 years. And therefore, I don't want to take any of my dollars that I would have invested in
Yeah.
energy. I'm going to put none of them in the oil industry anymore. So that has this really
Scary.
harsh, amazing event, which is the world runs out of oil, not because the resource is gone,
Right.
but because the
scare.
I mean, think
Yeah,
about
the scare.
not even millions, billions of lives that are going to be immediately adversely affected.
all of the children of Africa
Yeah.
who still live out in the Serengeti or in poor areas
Mm-hmm.
are going to be denied the malaria pills they need, the indoor air pollution they got from burning dung to cook
Right.
their boiler water. All of those things that have made even the poorest of the world live like kings from 300 years ago.
Yeah.
All those are eliminated
Yeah.
because I say we're all going to die.
Well, people don't realize the astonishing impact that we have had as a race on eliminating abject poverty.
Oh.
I mean, the UN
it's amazing.
2030 goal was hit by 2013. I mean,
It's
this
fast,
is
isn't it?
insane. I mean, we are lifting more people per year out of poverty than has happened ever in history. And so much of
You're
this
right.
is because of these industries that are literally fueling success for these
I
folks.
like your term, literally fueling, because you heat your house,
Yes.
you cook your food,
Yes.
you air condition your house,
Yes.
you turn the lights on.
It's all there.
It's
all
there.
So turn the wells off.
And you'd get rid of all of that improvement.
So here's how my brother and I are behaving, because Elizabeth Warren, as the president, or really anybody on that side of the ticket, and including some Republicans, are completely against fossil fuels. So anybody up there can take this action. And so we look at the United States and say it is just one of 40 countries where oil comes out of the ground. It's actually maybe 60, but 40 that really matter.
Right.
The oil industry and the clever investors of the world have said, so the U.S., which is currently the biggest market for pretty much everything, drill bits, drilling rigs, whatever, frack jobs, I got 39 other markets
Yeah.
I can go into. And so I'm not going to tell anybody on this podcast what we're doing, but my brother and I are already moved into the other countries. Because, all right, take away the U.S. from me, the world's a
Yep.
huge playground.
So,
We're already there.
So there's people already preparing for what might come.
You bet. I'll just give you one. Russia. You
Interesting.
may not like
And I
their
know the other one.
president.
It's going to be Ukraine.
Well, yeah, we bribed a guy over there. But yeah, Russia is one of the countries that can increase its oil output. So why wouldn't we be in Russia?
Yeah.
Because if the U.S., I mean, isn't this weird to
It's gonna
say?
stop.
Because I don't think you guys are Canadian, you're Americans, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Isn't it weird to have three Americans on a podcast talking about where is the sanest place to invest if you're in the oil and gas industry, and you say, well, it's not the U.S., there's too much political risk.
Yeah.
I'm going to Russia
Right.
because it has less political risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about that?
That's some
weird.
insanity there.
Yeah.
Yep,
That's some
that's
insanity
it.
there.
Anyway,
and it's
so
not
that's
coming
going to be
from this side.
No, it's
Yeah.
like we are opportunists. We're rational. We're capitalists. I'm going to assume you are because you're
Yep.
doing this.
Yeah.
And so you are not going to throw yourself at the mercy of the state and ask to be paid to exist. You're going to
Right.
create something.
Right.
And so you're going to go where you can create the greatest value for the time you employ,
Yeah.
and do it where it's personally rewarding.
Right.
So-
All right, before I want to shift gears a little bit, because the other thing you talked about is kind of what we do. And I think it was when somebody asked you a question at the end, but you mentioned, manufacturers, and they do it with speed, but they know if they do it with speed, not always is it going to fit together the right way. But oil and gas industry doesn't always pay attention to that. So that's what we do. We're a quality management consulting company, and so of course, whenever anybody mentions anything about quality, we want to talk
Our
to
ears
them about
perk
it.
up a little bit. Yeah.
Well, and so specific to this, my argument has been, because I went to industrial engineering graduate school and actually studied the flow of stuff through a factory, and when I see that in the United States, the way we develop oil fields now is we drill 100 wells, we frack 100 wells, we do it all in this very military-like process where speed, when I drill a well, speed is the thing we measure. Drill it faster and faster and faster and faster.
Right.
But if I go into any of the factories that we own, and
It's the opposite.
you don't, it's right. If the only thing I measure is speed, I guarantee pieces of crap coming out of the front of the plant.
Amen.
In fact, I mean, where would you put speed in terms of a factory's?
4 out of 5. If I've had 5 priorities, on-time delivery is probably number 4.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Because it doesn't matter if it's on time, if it's crap. If they send it back to you, it's way late.
It's exactly. It's got the two pieces have to screw together.
Uh-huh.
The tolerances have to matter. Speed is not so in the oil industry, speed is not just one of the metrics. It's the only metric
Yeah.
on the drilling side, and it's creating wells that aren't in every case disastrous, but I guarantee they're suboptimal.
Yeah.
The two pieces don't screw together.
Right.
But I drilled it fast.
And how do you suggest we change that thinking?
Well, the problem is that in an oil company there tends to be 3 operational silos: the drilling folks, the completion folks, the people who get the well after it's been drilled, but now you got to frack it, and the third group is the folks then who have to take the well that's been drilled and completed, and now they produce it for the next 20 years.
Okay.
The drilling guys they're the ones who are measured on speed.
Right.
They should actually all be
Any
together.
problems they have is just going to be magnified for everyone else.
Shove it down the hole. So the production folks and the reservoir people need to have this direct every day. Start your morning around the table and tell the drilling folks what the Betty Sue #1 that they drilled a month ago, what it's now doing. And the problems it just has caused.
And allow a little bit of back and forth
Let's
feedback.
do a little root cause analysis here and say, was it the production guys that screwed it up, or was it the drilling folks? Get rid of those silos. So I'm going to say get rid of the silos, because you can't just measure one thing.
I agree.
I
Now here's the problem: if you let the production folks run it,
Uh-huh.
they'll cause you to drill a well that takes a year to drill, but it'll be perfect.
Right.
So
There's always an in-between.
That's right.
There's
There-
always an in-between.
find that optimal
Yeah.
number, and the only person who can cram that optimal situation down is whoever the head of the company is,
Yeah.
because they're the ones who are accountable to their investors, their shareholders. So make that happen.
Yeah, and I think they're always concerned about making the money the fastest, and
Yeah, but it's
whatever
that
gets
short-term gains.
yeah,
Not always
it's
worth
not
it.
worth it.
If you're only going to measure short term, I guarantee you'll be out of business in the long term.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, if you look at how many companies stay on the Dow Jones, and folks, it's what 5-6 years. the normal lifespan of companies to be at the top of the echelon, and then they fall off.
It was a good idea for a while.
Yeah, exactly. But
All
not
right.
sustainable.
Well, thank you so
Thank
much
you
for your
very
time.
much.
Appreciate it.
My
Lot of
pleasure.
fun. Lot
Good
of
job.
fun.